Hey, welcome to The Hours. I'm Tyler, joined by my friend Mark, and this is where we spend the hours with you to help develop the SAVI coaching mindset, hopefully serve coaches and contribute to revolutionizing the way the game is taught and played. Mark, what's good in your world?
Everything, man. We get to talk hoops, uh, visiting with coaches all morning. So full day of basketball.
Have you already been visiting with coaches with your courtside consulting, or you have more coming up?
Both. I had one early this morning with a college coach. Talked about implementing some zone offense, and then actually a pretty interesting topic. We talked about um, handling in-game situations. We tried to just throw out as many ideas as we could of decisions that we would want to make on the front end. Are we going to foul up three? What if our best player or a player has two personal fouls in the first half? Last possession of the game, we call it a timeout. So it was pretty cool, just back and forth conversations of pros and cons of all of those.
Mark and I actually get to go together to Iowa in about 2 weeks. So if you are anywhere near there, we'll be speaking at the Iowa Coach Association Clinic, the IBCA Clinic, and we'd love to hang out with you. I'll be presenting on competitive shooting ladders. Mark, what are you talking about?
I'm talking conceptual offense, everybody's favorite.
Everybody's favorite, except for those that don't run it.
Not yet. They don't run it
Yeah,
yet.
yeah. Isn't every offense eventually conceptual, or no?
It is like even if you run a very, I think the difference between conceptual and traditional offenses is conceptual, you more guide behavior instead of dictate.
Hmm.
So let's say we're running a lot of set plays where we're dictating behavior. At some point, it becomes conceptual
Right.
because if we don't get a shot off the action we're running, but I think that's why I say not yet is at some point you have to play conceptually. And I just think as we revolutionize the way the game is taught and played, more and more coaches will realize, well, if we're going to play like this anyway, why wouldn't we want to start our possessions playing like this?
I think that's a very valuable articulation and one that I think we haven't communicated enough. And so I'll reiterate it again. All offenses, the outcome, the goal is that they are conceptual. When we say conceptual offense, what we're really talking about is how you start and how to get there. It's different than maybe how a traditional offense would get there in their process. And we just believe that you'll get there faster and you'll get further, and it'll be a lot more fun along the way if you approach it in this way. Like I would argue that the triangle, as it was run at the highest level, either by the Bulls or by the Lakers, was conceptual. And yet, how most teams got there, and I would even, I wasn't in the gym, but I would even argue those NBA teams got there, is they got there in a more traditional way. But eventually, you hear Kobe talking about it. It was very conceptual when Kobe was running it. And so I think that's a really important point is every coach is trying to get there. We're just
Yeah.
going to try to help you get there better.
And if you're new to conceptual offense or just early in your journey, think of it this way: start looking at it through the lens of offense creates an advantage instead of we run something to create a shot. Once you create an advantage, that's ultimately going to lead to a shot that you want, but it shouldn't be we're going to run this action and that's going to create this shot. And if not, well, then maybe we call another set play or we got to do something else, right? It should all just flow right on top of each other. Just, we always said seamless flow. What flow is one action begins before the previous one ends. So we just have action flowing into another action. The old adage of defense can't guard two things in a row. So we want to have that seamless flow in our possession. And then if we're running offense to create an advantage, we don't know where that advantage is going to ultimately land. So we got to develop players, and we want as many players as possible that can shoot it, drive it, or move it. So not only will it get you there faster, like you said, get to advantage faster, it's also going to help you develop players quicker.
Yeah. So, everyone, what you just heard was a robust definition of what we call a savvy coach. So, savvy is the banner that we use to describe a coach that approaches it in this way, a savvy way, right? A coach that believes that simplicity wins, that adversity, messiness actually strengthens, challenge strengthens, right? That our victory is defined by our process, our inputs, not by our outcomes, and the identity that we're embracing is a becoming mastery based identity, not one that is defined by a record or the level at which we coach, but really being a transformational coach, becoming more transformational. So that's what a savvy coach is. What you just heard Mark share is what a savvy coach believes about conceptual offense. And so each one of these hours is us investing hours in communicating this approach, this belief, and hopefully influencing all of you who are listening to be a more savvy coach. And so today we are going to segue directly into our big question. That's a conceptual approach to being a savvy coach. And Mark and I are going to share some very direct do's and don'ts for a savvy coach. A savvy coach that is new to coaching, a savvy coach that's new to savvy, or a coach that's coming from a very traditional background that is willing to kind of change a little bit. Now, these 5 do's and don'ts, of course, the answer is it depends. Is there ever a scenario to do a don't? Yeah. Is there ever a scenario to don't to do? Yeah. But we're going to say, okay, where do you just start? And this was actually inspired by me observing coaches that I'm mentoring and saying, like, okay, they believe everything that I believe. They believe much of what I believe from a principle standpoint, and their hearts are transformational. And yet, it isn't quite playing out in the most effective way. And so I realized I need to give some really simple do's and don'ts to the coaches that I'm mentoring to help them on their journey. So we're going to popcorn 5 do's and 5 don'ts of a savvy coach, back and forth. And Mark, let's start with. Do you want to start with a do or start with a don't?
I'll start with a do. Mine's from a simplicity standpoint. Give specific feedback. So you use the example of walking into a practice and seeing some do's and don'ts. A lot of the practices that I observe is very general feedback, whether it's let's go or play harder, get a rebound, get a stop. To me, it's over time it just becomes noise, right? Like players, I'm on defense, coach. I'm trying to get a stop. Like I know that we're trying to get a stop here. Give me something that's going to help me. So more specific feedback, jump to the ball, right? So find the root cause of the problem. Like, why are we not getting stops? We're out of position. How do we get in position? Jump to the ball. So that would be my specific feedback. My do is give specific feedback instead of general.
Beautiful. My do: play games 90% of your practice time. And of course that percentage can vary, but that's just a great place to start. Great place. I walked into a practice an hour into a 90-minute practice and asked one of the players, I observed what there. I said, hey, have you guys played any games yet? And the answer was no. And it's like, this is wrong then. Don't do that. Or do play more games.
Yeah, I'm curious. People always ask, what is the balance between games and drills and practice? 90% could be a place to start from, right? And maybe a coach has to adjust that. Or I've also shared the idea with some coaches is treat practice like a test day in the classroom, where today we're coming in and we're playing all 5-on-5. Today is a test day. We're still going to teach you the game. We could stop and do a skinny if we want and do a game sandwich, but man, we're coming in, we're getting warmed up, and it is all 5-on-5.
Playing games doesn't mean you can't teach. It just means you're playing games. So I think too often coaches think that, oh, I can only teach through drills because when we're playing games, I can't teach. And a savvy coach recognizes that games are the best way to teach, especially if you've established a process of like a one whistle freeze, or I can't remember what word you used, Mark, to freeze your team. And like there are so many more teachable moments in games because they have immediate context and application. So like for me, it's one whistle freeze. Okay, rewind 5 seconds, redo this with doing this. Go, right? Redo this, and I want you to hunt a 9 first. Redo this, and I want to make sure that we blitz the screen. Whatever. So like lots of stops with 7 second or less sound bites is more effective teaching than teaching a drill.
You might have stole one of my do's and
Darn
teach
it!
in bullet points.
Just
That's
segue right
okay.
into it. Segue right into it.
Let's do that. Teach in bullet points would be my next do. I find as coaches, we tend to over communicate things. I love that you said 7 second stoppage. That's about what we want, right? Is if we're going to stop it, stop practice. We want it to be very quick. So we're shortening feedback to application. In your case, stop, rewind. Maybe we didn't set a quality go screen, right? Here's one thing I'd want to clean up in the go screen. Ready, go. So we shorten that feedback application, man, and then I want to throw a don't in there, but I'll resist.
Beautiful. All right, keep it moving. Do keep it moving. Do keep it moving. If players are standing still, it's bad. If a game or drill is dragging on, it's bad. If you're stuck on one action point, whatever, it's bad. It's boring and it's bad. Keep it moving. The pace should be uncomfortably fast for players. So keep it moving.
Yeah, I'll go through the adversity lens here. Do normalize mistakes.
Mm.
Practice should be messy. If we're learning new skills and teaching new skills to our players, we should expect them to make a lot of mistakes early. Think about this. How often is the first time you do something the best you've ever done it? Like never, right? So I know for me, I would do this, especially as a younger coach, is we would teach something or I'd demonstrate something, have my team do it. And then when they didn't do it as well as me or as well as I envisioned, I would get really upset and be like, oh gosh, like we're just not very good, or these players just don't get it. But we should normalize mistakes, give players courage to make a pass, to try to fit a pass in a window, or to take shots, or to explore their game and to use practice as a lab to get better instead of we're always in performance zone. So teaching zone, performance zone, especially when we're in teaching zone, we should have mistakes all over the place. We want to normalize. We want to celebrate players that take chances and that lean into adversity.
Excellent. That segues into mine. Do ask questions. Do ask questions. Oh, I think Mark's giving
Oh
me the
my.
face. Okay, do ask questions, but I'll give a twist on this one. I'll ask questions through a victory lens. Ask questions where they're guessing, whereas a win lens would be you ask a question for the right answer. Let me give you an example. A win question would be, do you know what to do? Right? Then it's yes or no, right? Like I know the right thing or I don't know the right thing. That is a poor question. That's a win question. Whereas a victory question would be like, what do you think you might do in this situation? Right? Where there's like, okay, it's okay to be wrong. The victory is in them attempting. The win is in getting the answer right. Most coaches ask questions like, what are you supposed to do in this play? Or where should you be right now? Those are win questions. That's not a savvy question, because if a player is not confident that they know the right answer, the answer that you think, they're going to be reluctant to say or an attempt. Whereas a victory question is open ended, it's exploratory. Okay. How would you stand to take away a layup? Right? Or what's an option for you right now? Right? Is like, okay, should you shoot a drive or move it? Do you think? They're more victory based. You welcome their answer, and then give them a yes. And here's another option. So that would be ask more questions, but specifically victory questions, not win questions.
Love it. All right. Here's my next one. Coach behaviors first, whether it's practices, games. I would encourage coaches to walk in the practice and be the coach that their team needs them to be, meet them where they're at. If your players have really, really high energy, then we're likely going to start at standard. And then now we can coach technically and tactically. But if we don't get the behaviors right, if our team comes in, they lack energy, we're not communicating the day, we need something, then have tools to get the energy up, or we're not coaching technically or tactically. We can still practice and we can still do drills or games, but we're coaching behaviors first. Once we get the behaviors to standard, all the other X's and O's are going to be so much easier to accomplish.
Do talk one on one. Do talk one on one. Too many coaches will go an entire practice and not have a one on one conversation with a player to the side while action is going on. Do spend time talking one on one. That's where the majority of your teaching is actually going to be. The majority of your reminding is going to be gym wide to the entire group. The majority of your teaching is going to be one on one.
I will say, Man, ours are so similar. I'm trying to find a different one here. I'll do this.
Well, I think even if it is the exact same, like do it, hammer it, because simplicity wins.
Yeah, I've got one here, which goes to kind of the one-on-one conversations. Um, do lean into hard conversations and be proactive. I think great coaches anticipate adversity. They can see challenges before they happen, and they get ahead of those by being proactive. So lean into hard conversations. I think players want to be told the truth if you're doing it in a transformational way, in a way that's going to develop them as a person and a player. So I think oftentimes it's so easy to run away from things that might seem little in the moment, like this player is below standard in behavior or had a really bad reaction to something that happened. He'll be okay. Just give him some space, let him be. I think if you let small problems fester, they become big problems down the road, and big problems become um, culture killers, or we just get inundated with them, and then we get to that point where it's beyond the point of no return.
All right, here's my last one. Simplicity wins. Simplicity wins. If you are planning practice and you have written down 3 actions to teach rep play, simplify it and go down to 1. Simplicity wins. If you are considering your out of bounds package, cut it in half. Simplicity wins. More time on less things will produce greater results. Simplicity wins. I'll give a very specific example of this. I'm watching last night, one of our coaches is teaching a fingers cut and spends a significant amount of time on the fingers cut. Significant. And then I'm like, okay, good. It's time to move on. And then now let's go into ghost screens. And I was like, nope, nope, we're not going into ghost screens. We're moving on. I couldn't stop anymore, right? So simplicity wins. And a lot of times in our minds, like we had planned to teach fingers and ghost. And so we are going to go and do practice teaching fingers and ghost without having our finger on the pulse of the gym. Like, oh my gosh, all of them are disengaged. Their minds are spinning. Simplify, simplify, simplify. Simplicity wins. And if anything, do another progression of fingers cuts as opposed to adding in ghost screens. Simplicity will always win.
Absolutely. All right. Some don'ts. We ready for it?
Don't run 5 on 0. And we've talked about this so many times, and Mark has made the arguments for when you should run 5 on 0, but just start out by not doing it. Just challenge yourself. Like I said, just don't run 5 on 0. And have to really search for a significant reason to run 5 on 0. Don't do 5 on 0. And I just wish I'd put this into our DNA because I walked into practice to 5 on 0 again yesterday.
Yeah, we did a film breakdown for a college program that we consult with, and they did 5-on-5 to teach some of their offensive actions. It was really refreshing to see. All right, my don't talk as much at practice, especially during live play, and for 2 reasons. Number one, if you talk during live play, you're actually getting your players to not lock in, or you're giving them a distraction. I think you're also, whenever, let's say a player takes a poor shot or a shot that we don't want, or makes some type of mistake during live play, if we say their name, it's going to take them 20 to 30 seconds to fully refocus. And you're teaching them to either ignore you or not get to the next play, because it's impossible to do either one. And then also, here's another tool: stop coaching altogether during certain games or drills, and you will find that your players will automatically be more player led. You're going to shape the environment where, hey, zero coaches are going to say anything. So all communication is completely up to the players. And if something's wrong, fixing it is completely up to you as well. So we're not going to coach during live play. We're not coaching in between whistles. We're 100% player led here. Let's see if we can do it. So teaching zone, coach led; performance zone, when we're competing, try to make it completely player led.
Don't do 2-line layups. Just don't do it. There are better things to do with your time, so don't do it. One argument I got back from I think a coach was commenting on a YouTube video, like, but my players love 2-line layups, and my children love ice cream. Okay, that doesn't mean that it's good for them. All right, there's just so many better things you could do than 2-line layups.
100%. Don't focus on results. Learn to love the process and create process goals. So ultimately, we want this result or this outcome. What are 5 steps that we have to take in order to get there? Focus on that. Fall in love with the process. I think that's what great coaches do is they don't result. Everything is not zero sum. Focus on your process goals because I think your players feel that when everything is result oriented, you're going to be very emotional. And the number one thing you can do for your players is be consistent. And how you do that is not focus on wins or the results.
Beautiful. Don't do three-man weave. There are so many better things that you could do with your time than run three-man weave. Don't run three-man weave. And so both with like two-line layups and three-man weave, like these are redundant, but here's why I'm sharing it and why I would put these as standards in our program. It's going to force you to grow as a coach. If we remove these crutches of like, here's 15 minutes of two line layups, here's 15 minutes of warming up with three-man weave, you've got to fill the time with something. And it's going to force you to fill the time with something that I believe will be more productive. So just by removing the crutches, you're going to have to strengthen your legs as a coach. And so that's why I don't hate passing and running. I don't hate dribbling and shooting layups, right? I just hate that they're a crutch that keep us as coaches from finding a way to be a little bit more efficient. So I think if we can just remove these common crutches, it's going to really help you start on your journey to becoming a savvy coach.
If I can't do 5-on-0 2-line layups or 3-man weave, like what are we going to do at practice, coach? I mean, we got to do
Exactly.
something.
I just cut out half of most practices across the world. And that's the goal. That's the goal. You might feel like you're just, you're floundering. Good.
Yeah. And my don't is going to be related to that. So if you eliminate 5-on-0 2-line layups, 3-man weaves, absolutely fill that time with games, right? But, or something that's going to transfer better to the game. But my don't is don't fill time aimlessly, meaning we have a 90-minute practice and we plan our practice and we have 70 minutes planned and there's 20 minutes. Don't feel the need to just like, hey, what can we throw in here? I would suggest always leave space in your practice for game sandwiches, more skinnies, more teaching, or hey, this is going really well, let's stay with this, or this is going not so well, let's stay with this. So I think leaving space is always a good thing. So don't fill time.
Good. Okay, I'm gonna stick with my just simple and direct, kicking the crutches out from under you. Don't run plays. Just don't run plays. Nothing else to add.
No, no, nothing. Okay, now really, what are we going to do at practice? Now we can even go over our
Exactly.
play.
Exactly. I'm trying to wipe out your entire practice right now.
All right. Don't try to do everything. I think a savvy coach has a very clear lens, and this goes to the identity piece. The stronger you are in your identity, the more ideas that you see on Twitter or all these resources that are available to coaches now, you'll start to look through a savvy lens of like, oh, I see that. That's really good for them, but not for us. Like that's not something that fits our players, our style, our program. So although I appreciate that, we don't have to do that. We're going to do what fits into our style of play and our identity only.
Hmm. All right, here's my fifth one. Don't let your emotions rule you. A savvy coach does not let their emotions rule them. Frustration, anger, fear, anxiety, all these things you recognize them, let them pass through you, but don't allow them to impact your decisions or your actions. That's really, really hard. And it's also really, really obvious if someone is a savvy coach or not. On the sideline during a game, during a practice, in conversations with parents, players, or coaches, a savvy coach adopts a more stoic approach and does not allow their emotions to rule them.
I actually had a coach that I consult with say, man, I'm watching your practice film and your game film. It's like, I'm just way more intense than you are. I'm like, well, I used to be that way, but then now I just see things just through a different lens, and I'm not resulting out there, not coaching emotionally. All right, don't put arbitrary deadlines on yourself or your players. Learning is not linear. So for your players, think of it this way. I heard this, I really liked it. You put a bag of popcorn in the microwave. They're all popcorn kernels. They're all in there for the same amount of time. Some of them pop right away, some of them pop in the middle, at the end, and some of them don't pop at all. So your players' learning is going to be very similar. Some players are going to quote unquote get it right away, or they're going to improve right away. Other players, it's gonna have to bake a little longer before you see those results. So don't put deadlines on your players, and also don't put deadlines on yourself. Talk to a lot of coaches that say, what should we have in before our first game? And they feel the need to have everything in by their first game. I always started from our foundational pieces, and how quickly we moved was directly related to how well we coached and how fast our players learned. But where we got to by our first game, obviously we wanted the necessary things in, but I did not feel the need to put some like first game deadline on myself or my program.
Beautiful. Well, that is a SAVI primer. If you're new to SAVI, if you're new to coaching, if you've been coaching for 30 years, that's who we are. That would be a starting place for any coach, I think, at any time. And even as I went through it, I recognized opportunities for myself in all of those areas. So I hope that you resonate with some of these things. And this is our mission, to revolutionize the way the game is taught and therefore played. And this is a starting point of do's and don'ts for you to adopt and get rid of if you want to become a savvy coach.
Man, that was fun. We got to do more do's and don'ts on the
More do's and
podcast.
don'ts. All right, that's it's good for us to know.
All right, let's go mailbag here. You ready?
I'm ready.
Your first question here is, it's a two-part question. I kind of like the second question better than the first one. But the first one is, when you're stopped in transition, meaning neutral, what's your favorite action to create an advantage? And then the second part is, what's the most overrated action in your opinion?
My favorite action is the action that our best player is best at. Is my favorite action. Best player is best at. So for each team, I think that answer is going to be a little bit different. So let me answer that question three ways. One, what's my favorite action? Because I'm a basketball player, right? My favorite action is just going to be a high ball screen. That's my favorite action. So if I'm stopped in transition neutral, I'm calling up the opponent's weakest defender, whoever they're guarding, and I'm going to attack them on any sort of a switch or hedge. That's my favorite action. My default favorite action for a youth team is going to be my second answer. Default favorite for a youth team is fingers. Fingers is my default favorite action because I think it's the simplest and it's actually the hardest to guard. But it's the simplest way just to create an advantage because most youth team, anyway, we won't even go into it. Okay, what's my favorite action for a higher level team? Fan. I think fan is different enough and creates the off-ball movement while still retaining space. A lot of other off-ball movements, even like split actions or whatnot, they sometimes shrink the space. So I really like fan for a higher level team because it creates double wide driving gaps and some off-ball movement, removes help, and then a lot of teams don't see it very often.
Yeah. All right, mine are going to be somewhat similar, which we're aligned. Shocker. Fan is one of my favorite openers for a possession. Fingers, I love in the middle of a possession. Although I do agree that at lower levels, fingers is easiest to teach, execute, and the score off of, create advantage off of. But the action that I have been drunk on for a couple years now is a flat ball screen, and I call it a step up dunker or porch, just coming straight up the lane line, flat ball screen. That would probably be my favorite action if I was playing right now, and it's one that we've blended into drive and space. And for coaches that are just dipping their toe in the water, fingers, fan, those are actions out of Rose series that we run in the race and space and the drive and space offense. And a drive and space course is going to be out soon. And we had a cohort last week where we did a deep dive into drive and space. Obviously, the race and space course is available for you. All right. Second part of that question. This is the one I'm most interested in. What's the most overrated action in your opinion?
I'm considering. There's so
I'll go
many.
first if you want me to.
Okay.
And I'd like to hear your opinion, or coaches, write us, join the community, and get at me if you don't agree. To me, the dribble handoff as a create action, just a normal, like, just lazy, we're going to kind of exchange and I'm going to flip you the ball. I think most of the time players are going uphill, like going away from the basket, and it's easily switchable. It rarely creates advantage, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. I'm going to say pass and cut. I'm
That's a good one.
anti pass and cut.
Yeah. Don't pass and cut would be
Don't pass
another
and cut.
question.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the hardest one because many coaches come from read and react. Um, to because read and react is a good stepping stone towards conceptual offense. And when people are ready to like jump off the cliff and play conceptual, they often are coming from that. And pass and cut is the hardest one for them and for players to give up.
Agreed. And I come from a motion background, so I went through the same evolution there too. All right, this is a good one for you, Tyler. When taking over a program, what is the first thing you would implement to change culture?
Establish player-led standards. I would establish player-led standards.
I'll go one step before that. I'll stay with player led, but I'll say player led values. And the way I would do that would be, what type of team do we want to be? You know, what type of team do you want to play on? We're all going to sacrifice. We're all going to spend a bunch of time in the gym together. We're going to work hard. Why? Like, what's the ultimate goal? We want to be a team that is resilient. Okay, well, then there's a value, right? That's a core value. And then we can create standards around those. I think that's that's a really nice flow to get to your standards.
Can you differentiate between values and standards for everybody real quick?
Yeah, I think values ultimately drive standards. So if a let's just use resilient because that's the one we've already thrown out. That's the value. So a standard might be you're probably would be better at this than me, geared around how we respond to adversity. Like we meet adversity with fascination, or we normalize mistakes, right? In our program would be a standard. Or I'll say this, like we're a value could be excellence. Okay, well, what does excellence look like? When you walk into a gym, like everybody there, everybody on time, everybody on task. Okay, well, then a standard would be we're on time as a team.
Right now, I think culture is still a buzzword. You know, what's the culture of your program? And I would define culture as the end result of this process: vision, values, standards, and culture. Vision is going to be leader led, establish a vision. This is where we're going. Let's go. Values are going to be, all right, well, how do we want to get there? Right. And then standards are, this is the minimum expectation for how we execute our values, right? So if a value is timeliness, the standard is 15 minutes early, right? It gives you like we can define our values in some way. And then as we hold the standards and as we have conversations with each other about being above the standard, those conversations, how we interact with each other, how those standards play out in our relationships, that is the culture. The culture is the outcome of vision, values, and standards.
I like that. I like when you say define standards. One way we've done that is just below the line, on the line, above the line. Below the line is late, on the line is showing up right on time, above the line is 15 minutes before.
Yep, and that's your standard.
Yep.
You've defined the value with standards.
All
Excellent.
right. Question for you. Actually, I'll ask this one of myself because I put you on the spot on the last two. Thoughts on implementing and installing two SAVI systems at the same time? This coach asked about lock left and rows. I'll go from a rows standpoint because that is one that I'm close to. I would say rows is not a system. Rows is just a series or a family of actions. Like I said earlier, we use rows series in the race and space offense. So it's not a don't think of rows as an offense by itself. It's something that can be added into a conceptual framework. Fingers, fan, wave, follow, all those are just actions that you can use and incorporate. So I would have no pushback on installing lock left and rows in the same season. In fact, I would highly encourage you to do that. And then same with lock left. You can speak more on it, but you got to run some type of defense, and we think lock left is the best to run. So why not?
Mark, what are your thoughts on both eating healthy and working out at the same time?
I think you should do both. I think that's yeah, probably a good choice there.
Mark, why would you choose to eat healthier and not work out?
Oh, why would I laziness, I guess, or yeah, I don't know. I don't know why I would choose that.
Yeah. So I mean, I think, that's kind of a roundabout way of just emphasizing the answer. Um, if you believe that something is good for you should do it. If you don't believe it's good for you, then don't do it. If you believe that something's good for you, but it's hard to do, right? Then you just decide how much discipline or how much pain you're willing to go through to get the thing that you believe is good for you. But you have to believe it's good for you. I'll throw the next mailbag question out. I actually got this one via email this morning. Um, there's a coach considering lock left, and one of the questions I ask when coaches are considering is, okay, what's the problem? Like, why aren't you embracing lock left? And I'll read this one word for word because it was strongly worded. Um, I've been asking other coaches their thoughts on lock left, and they told me that forcing middle when the ball's on the right hand side of the floor is a death sentence. And that is why I am not considering lock left. So if one believes that it is a death sentence, well, then you shouldn't run lock left. But if you believe that it's not a death sentence, then you should run lock left. Right. And so it all just comes down to kind of what you believe. If you believe it's right, then do it. If you don't believe it's right, then don't do it until you've updated your beliefs.
All right, last mailbag question that I have, unless you have more. A coach was asking what we thought of the spin move. He said he's got players, two guys on his team that just love the spin move, and he's not a fan of it. So he's leaning strongly to discourage them from using it. What are your thoughts on that?
If it works, do it. If it doesn't, don't.
Yeah, I feel like certain players have a knack for using a spin move. Like for me, it would be in space. Like I think, and then in space and with balance before shot. Do they have space? Are they balanced before their shot? Then it's probably really effective. If the spin gets them into trouble, then let's move them away from the spin, give them another solution.
Yeah, and I'd say apply that across the board. Um, if it worked for you, it doesn't mean it'll work for someone else, and it didn't. If it didn't work for you, doesn't mean it will work for someone else. I think most trainers actually fall into this trap. Is most skills trainers only teach what worked for them, and that's how at least I evaluate skills trainers. And so I've gotten the opportunity through all my years at PGC to train up hundreds of camp directors, and I played a lot of pickup with those hundreds of camp directors. And when you play pickup with someone, you see their game immediately. Then I watch those camp directors run camps, do skill sessions, whatever, and they are teaching the thing that they are best at, right? Like it's the best move in the world. Well, it was great for you, and it very well may serve other people as well. But the challenge for most skills trainers is moving from a place of I'm teaching this because it worked for me to I'm going to study this player's game and their context and what works for them, and I'm going to enhance it. So I think that's the mindset and approach behind it. And I
Yeah.
and I come from a place of having done that myself as a really good player. When I started training, I just taught everyone everything that I did, right? Because I knew how to do it. And then I recognized that that was limiting, and attempted to move off that.
Yeah, same thing with shooting too. Is I find a lot of coaches try to get their players or the players that they're working out to shoot like they shoot, but again, that worked for you. And I'm talking more like form mechanics. Everybody's going to move differently, right? So let's do this. We did a bunch of teach better stuff, or I would say this. Here's your game of the week. Very simply, shape the environment, let them go do it. And if they don't have the exact solutions that you were envisioning, if it's a solution that's effective, great. If they need help with solutions, then give instruction. So shape the environment, let them go explore, let them go do it. And then if and when needed, then give them instruction.
Excellent. I'm very excited about this episode, and I hope that you reach out to us if you are challenged by any of our do's and don'ts. You can find us at savvycoach.com. Join our free online community. Just go to school, SKOOL, search Savvy Coaching. It'll be linked in the description below. We'd love to get into a conversation with you, and we'd love for you to ask all of your questions in our free coaching community so that we can answer them on the next mailbag. I got one last challenge. Please share this episode with a coach. whether you agree with what we said or disagree with what we said, share it with the coach and be like, hey, what do you think about this? I think that in sharing, that's how we grow ourselves, grow others, and grow the game. So don't keep it for yourself, share it out.
Absolutely. Thanks for spending the time with us. If you're looking for me, I'll be somewhere doing some 2-line layups.
And if you're looking for me, I'll be walking into a gym shaking my head.
That's right. All right, everybody. Appreciate y'all. Stay savvy.
Stay savvy.